So for more on this, we want to bring in Jens Laerke, Deputy Spokesperson for the United Nations Office of Humanitarian Affairs. Thank you so much for joining us. There are several reports that Russian troops are now storming that steel plant where civilians are still, and Ukrainian troops are also there. What's the latest that you're hearing on the situation there?
Well, indeed, we are hearing exactly the same reports, Anne-Marie, and that is horrifying. And why? Because we know that there are still civilians that are trapped in there. We managed yesterday to get some 100 people out, basically over the weekend. They were then transported to safety into Ukraine government-controlled territory. But look, these were women, children, elderly people. They have been essentially buried alive in bunkers under this steel plant for the better part of 2 months since the war began, with very little access to food, to water, no health care whatsoever. These are very fragile people. When they came out and we met them and we transported them to Zaporizhia, as you can see there on your images, what we saw and heard was absolutely terrifying. These are people who have lived through hell.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the challenges of getting 101 people out of this steel plant?
Well, it was an operation that ended up lasting a full 5 days. First driving from Zaporizhia, some 230 kilometers to Mariupol, get to the plant, negotiate with both sides of the conflict on a strictly humanitarian basis, access across every single checkpoint. Then getting people out of the steel plant. And mind you, Anne-Marie, many of them are elderly people who have difficulty walking on their own, so they had to be helped. Now, the window of silence, as we call it, basically where the guns fall silent, that we had agreed with both parties to the conflict before this, it held while the operation was ongoing. But then there's 230 kilometers back through all these checkpoints again. So it's a painstaking operation. But here's the thing, it shows that it can be done, and we must do it again.
In fact, there are still civilians in that steel plant. I wonder if the plan was initially to get all of them out, or really just the most vulnerable like you did. What is the plan for the remaining civilians? And can the Russian troops be trusted? Because we know there had been ceasefires that we thought had been agreed upon before in order to get civilians out in other locations, and they didn't hold.
Well, indeed, the plan was, because as humanitarians, what we do is we try to get civilians out. There are other people than civilians in that plant. Our focus is, of course, on the civilians, and it was agreed with both sides, the Ukrainian side and the side of the Russian Federation, the authorities there, that those were the people that we could take out. We don't honestly have a full handle on exactly how many civilians remain, because what happened at the start, when people 2 months ago, when the war started, people from Mariupol went to that plant because they knew that there were bunkers there, so they would be safe from shelling. Then, as the war dragged on and Mariupol essentially got completely demolished over their heads, they were trapped down there. Several of them were separated from their families, and they didn't know if they were there, if they were still outside, or where they were. So we couldn't just ask them, how many people do you think are there? Well, we don't really know. The thing is, of course, that as we can see, the fighting seems to have picked up again, that we get some other kind of opportunity to get the remaining civilians out.
Well, Jens, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for the work that the UN is doing there. We are all praying that those civilians can get out safely. Thank you.
Thank you.